See the screen? Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar today on life balance. My name is Rosemary Nichols, and I'm a health educator for Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare and Tufts Health Plan. I'm also a professor at Lesley University in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where I teach a variety of courses in health, wellness, and nutrition. And I want to thank you for being here today. You know, I thought back and I thought about my youth and my dad going to work, and he went to work and came home at a regular time. And when he was back from work, it was fully family time. Of course, at that time, there were no computers and there were no cell phones or smartphones. And he only worked 10 minutes away. He only had a 10-minute drive. All of those things today can impact our life balance. Um, Not only the technology, which has sort of caused almost a bleed, if you will, of our work life sometimes into our home life, and the long commutes. Many of us drive an hour and a half, or take public transportation for that long. And so if you're not content about your balance, how do we regain some of it? We're going to talk about that in the next half hour. So I like to say it's about feeling content in who you are. Maybe you're fully content in one area of your life and don't want to change. And the decisions that you make. So without further ado, about signs of imbalance. How do we know when we're out of balance? Well, there's negative spillover, and it can work in both directions. So that we're short, we're curt with our spouses, with our partners, with our children, or we don't want to be at the office. We have things that are troubling us, or things that need to get done at home that we want to attend to, and it causes a problem at work. So in other words, either our work or our family, or even our desire to do other things, take a course, for example, or spend time with friends, is suffering. We feel conflicted. We have trouble sleeping in many cases because we're stressed. Some of this has to do with problems with time management, but it may not. It may just be there's just too much to do. And if we have trouble sleeping, we're going to be exhausted. And it's not unusual for sleep deprivation to express itself, if you will, in increased tension, anxiety, even depression. And we just maybe feel like we don't have time for self. So if you want more balance, some of the things you want to think about, very important. Who are you? What matters to you? What are your priorities? This is important because if your priority is work, maybe there's less of an issue, or vice versa. It may be making it more difficult for you in the workplace because you're not attending to everything you should. What are your goals in life? Speaks a lot to, you have to think about, what are your values? What keeps you moving forward? What gets you up in the morning? And it could be some of both. For me, I have a passion for teaching health and wellness related courses, nutrition related courses, but family is also very important. And think about what you're working for. I mean, for a lot of us, yes, it's for the money or the health insurance, but it may also be part of our identity. And then you have to decide what's essential and what's not on either end. So maybe the windows don't get cleaned to the degree that your mother used to clean her windows, for example, when you were younger and lived at home. And maybe you can't be the perfectionist that you think you should be at work, and it's very satisfactory. Some things need to be done at 100%. There are other things that it's not a problem at 85 or 80%. And the sources that teach us about time management tell us this if we're perfectionists. We have to remember self-care. And this is important because you can't get water from an empty vessel. You can't give your you're all at work or you're all at home, it's not about self-indulgence. You have to schedule mental breaks. We're going to talk about it both at home, but also at work. Maybe you need to set an alert for yourself at lunch or snack time because um, you're skipping your lunch or you're always eating your lunch in front of the computer. It's a good idea to, even if you can take a half hour to get away from the computer screen, maybe socialize with some of your coworkers. Or if you can just go right out the door and there's a green space, great for emotional well-being, or even a blue space. I was giving a lecture and it was right near the water. It was beautiful. And you could sit out there and eat your lunch. Physical activity. Are you attending to that? We should be doing at least 30 minutes of exercise a day. And you can break it into 3, 10, or 10 or 15-minute bouts if you're going to do a little more than that half hour, at least 5 days a week. One of the benefits of this, in fact, is it helps us to reduce our stress, but also, regular exercise can help us sleep better. It can we can be more assured that we're not going to have that sleep latency or that fragmented sleep, and that's important for dealing with our stress that can impact either our work life or our home life. And so work on getting sufficient sleep. Screens need to be shut off, whatever they are. Give yourself a good hour before you're going to go to bed and wind down. Get yourself ready for bed and brush your teeth and all, and let your body get the signal that I'm getting ready for bed. And there are many other things we can do. If you haven't enjoyed a webinar on getting sufficient sleep, go on the internet and read. Go on and take a look at the National Sleep Foundation information. And be flexible. Remember, what's going to work for you this week may not work for next week. And how about time management at work? Very important to assess your time and eliminate your time wasters. So you could even keep a little journal for a few days or a week. How do you spend your time? Do you allow yourself to get interrupted with all kinds of media things? Or taking phone calls, taking texts all the time, etc. This is important because these are time wasters. And it means that in order to get what we need to get done, we're going to have to spend longer time at our workplace, for example, or do it at home. We're going to talk about SMART goals. So we need to create some of those. They'll help our time management and prioritize your tasks. I don't know if you know the Eisenhower matrix. This is it. It's almost like if you're going to clean out your garage or a closet, you might have 3 boxes that you say, okay, so one box, these are the things I'm going to save. One box, oh, these things are really good, but we don't need them anymore. I'm going to give them to big brother, big sister, or whomever. And the third box, well, it's going in the trash. This is very similar. So if things are important and urgent, they need to get done now. And if they're important, but you have time to do them, you've got to schedule them. Don't just forget them. If they're not important, but they are things that really need to get done. See if you can delegate. Now, you can't always delegate at work. We don't all have that authority or the luxury to do that, but we certainly can do some delegation at home that makes it a little easier for us at home. And if it's not important and it's not urgent, delete it, get rid of it, just don't do it. So prioritizing is really important. Use your planner. I'm sure most people already do that, but if you don't, do it. If feasible, as I said, delegate and mobilize a team effort. Most of us can do more of this at home than we can at work. And don't overcommit. Learn how to say no, but in a more positive way. When I was first teaching, there was a professor in the Department of Psychology, and she said, my mantra is when I can't take on something else, oh, I'd love to help you out on this. I really enjoy working with you, but right now my plate is really full. please ask me again in the future if you need help. And I'm sure that I'll have more time for you, but unfortunately, I can't do it now. So that's when, we have to, or we can say no. But there are times when it's with supervisors that we have to do things. So if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, negotiate deadlines. Sometimes maybe the supervisor forgets that we've got 2 or 3 other things on our plate that are due within the next few days or the next week. And just remind them, oh, by the way, there's X and Y, and we have deadlines for those. So how do you want me to prioritize this? And it's also a good opportunity to ask for additional help. And maybe you can delegate some of the easier stuff, if you will. And sometimes I set my own deadline. So if something's due on the 15th, I set a deadline for myself earlier. I find that's helpful, but for me, that works for me. SMART goals. If you said to me, I'm going to save $1,000 by December, I'd say, great, how are you going to do that? Or I'm going to lose, 10 pounds by X. Well, that's wonderful. How are you going to do it? You have to have a plan. And in order to have a plan, you have to create some goals. So if you don't know about SMART goals, go on the internet and take a look. These are goals that you set that are very specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and they're related to time as well. So, for example, to achieve my goal of being in leadership, I'll update my resume with relevant qualifications so I can apply for the 3 open positions of the manager of the development team at a tech startup this week. Or how about at home? Beginning at dinner time tonight, I'll encourage family members to spend at least a few minutes each discussing their day. Both of these fit these SMART goals. And again, as I said, go online and read about SMART goals and start developing your own. And the other thing is, you can, at the end of a particular time, when you want to achieve this by, if you haven't quite met the goal, maybe you need to tweak it a bit and then move forward. And when you achieve your goal, you feel good about yourself. It helps to increase self-confidence and self-esteem. And that will make it easier for you to do other things in the future that you feel are a bit of a challenge. By the way, if you're going to delegate, you need to utilize the skills of the individual, whether it's at work or at home. Taking dishes out of the dishwasher seems like a pretty simple task. It depends on the age of the child, if you don't want all your dishes broken, right? Provide roles that are well-defined and very clear responsibilities. Who does what? You might have to, put these on a calendar and rotate them too. Provide guidance and instruction up front, whether it's home or at work, very clear so that people know what they have to do, how they're going to do it, and when they have to have it done by. So everyone is aware of deadlines. Everybody should have a clear, realistic vision and expectations. So again, no matter where you're doing this, maybe you're on a committee that's putting together a retirement party. It is authority needed for certain tasks. Whether it's, signing something at the bank, whatever the case may be. Track the progress and give positive feedback. So check in with people and give them positive feedback on the quality and the quantity of the work, and celebrate success for the team's effort. Thank you, guys. You did a great job. My husband makes me chocolate chip cookies, and I say, honey, thank you so much. These were delicious. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Everybody likes a thank you and some positive feedback, something to celebrate. Let them know that, they got a 10. Manage your workplace stress and don't let it spill over to home. So practice active listening. Do you know what that means? Psychologists, therapists, psychiatrists spend a lot of time learning how to actively listen. Mr. Rogers was a great active listener. When Tom Hanks interviewed some people who interacted with him, they said, when you were talking to him, you felt like you were the only person, the most important person in the whole world. He didn't just hear you. Sometimes people will say, I heard you. And then, a week later, you ask them and they say, oh, you never told me that. They heard you, but they weren't actively listening, paying attention. That can help to eliminate, not only confusion, but conflict. Take a break and move away from a stressful situation. This works particularly at home. Say, you know what? Let's talk about this a little bit later. But you can do the same thing at work. Learn to laugh at yourself. Find humor in a situation whenever it's appropriate. I remind my students how I understand how they may have difficulty learning about cardiovascular health the same way that I have difficulty learning about things when it comes to technology. And I tell them about humorous events that occurred as I was trying to learn. And I can laugh at myself. And not only that, but it helps to create a bonding if you have some humor, but not the kind of humor that's going to be degrading to people or at the expense of other people. Get used to sort of laughing at yourself and take things a little easier. And learn to say no graciously. We talked about that. If you're a procrastinator, why do you procrastinate? You have to know the why before you can work on the stop procrastinating part. Are you a perfectionist? So that's why we procrastinate sometime. Or maybe just poor time management. Or, you don't know how to break things down, maybe. And if you break things into smaller pieces and start working on those smaller pieces, you can meet your success. And this is where asking for help when you need it, asking for support is really important. And what about multitasking? A lot of people multitask, or so they think. In fact, multitasking can lead to more errors and actually takes longer. We're working different parts of the brain very often, and we're actually bouncing back and forth. So we may think we're multitasking, but the science says, in fact, that we're not. True, you can do something. You can do something, for example, like type an email and listen to instrumental music. But to type an email and talk on the phone, or sometimes typing an email and listening to a song that has words, listening to a singer can be problematic. I'm going to take a look. If you have doubts, take a look at the literature on multitasking. There's something called the Pomodoro technique. Pomodoro means tomato in Italian. Go online. And it was developed by an individual who has a technique where you break things into 25-minute segments and you actually set a timer. This is like a tomato timer for the kitchen he used. And every 25 minutes you take that break. So you put things into you compartmentalize them. And you just do that one thing. And if you need, 2 compartments, 50 minutes, then after the 5-minute rest, you do it again. And then after 4 or 5 of these little rotations, you take a 25 to 30-minute break. Works really well. And you can find apps on your phone now for this Pomodoro effect. And accept that perfection is impossible, because that certainly can contribute to stress. You got those boundaries between work and home. Sometimes you got to shut your computer off, for example, or not be on the phone. I see people who are constantly on their phone when their children are trying to interact with them at home. And they're doing work-related things, for example. When you're home, try to be at home. Take advantage of what your company has to offer. Do they have flexible scheduling, support for child and elder care, EAP programs, or sometimes just a supervisor with a lot of understanding? On the commuting time, depending on whether you're taking public transportation or driving and which way you want to go. Do you want to read and go through emails to try to catch up? On public transportation, you can do that or create your to-do lists for the next day, or maybe use the time to brainstorm or plan. You could do that. And on the other hand, you can clear your mind and maybe listen to music for relaxation. Some people like to wind down on their way home before they open the front door. And certainly if you're driving, you don't want to be doing that, but you can listen to a podcast, listen to audiobooks, or, in either direction. Some people go to work a little bit earlier in the morning to avoid the rush, and maybe either leave a little earlier if they can do that, or sometime a little bit later, maybe certain nights of the week. At home, if you need to, take 10 minutes, wash up, shower, change your clothes before you interact with your family or do anything else. That's a good sort of time to take a nice deep breath before you move on to the next stage of your day. Plan as many meals as you can, for the work week if you're working, prepping, pre-cooking, portioning. I do that. I get fish, I cut it up, throw the various pieces in the freezer. I can take what I need in the morning, take it out, so my fish is ready. I cook a nice pot of vegetables. We like broccoli or spinach or whatever. I cook a few of them, and I've got enough for a few days. And those days I feel, wow, I don't have to prep anything. I can just heat up the vegetables. The fish is all ready, throw it in the oven. Maybe I've already put it in the pan and seasoned it. Even, wasn't fully thawed. And it's ready to go. I just turn the oven on. Prepare the breakfast the night before. So get your coffee in the coffee maker and the water in there, and maybe get the oatmeal out or whatever you're going to do. That saves a lot of time in the morning and a lot of rushing around. And organize your clothing. And if you're not going to do it for the week, then you do it just for the next day, so you don't spend a half hour putting things on and looking at, oh, I'm not going to wear this, or I don't like this, or this isn't right, or this has got a stain. Do it the night before. Already I know exactly what I'm going to wear in the morning. And assign chores and responsibilities to every family member. It's a good idea to start doing this when the kids are young. I have friends with their kids, God bless them, don't do anything at home. They're 17, 16 years old, but they never started when they were young. You can't expect them at 17 to do these things. And sometimes even giving them a little allowance is a good idea, and teaching them, how to save that money or save up for something that they want to get, maybe a new pair of sneakers or whatever. If you can afford it, try to hire someone for the chores you don't like to do, whether it's cleaning the windows, if you can. Sometimes we can't afford to do those things, but if we can, it's also a good time saver. Kind of like a little reward for yourself too. And once in a while, hire a babysitter, or if you've got teenagers, ask them if they will babysit. So you can get certain work done, go out and get your exercise, or go out with your partner or your spouse, go on a date. Family calendars are a good idea. So you schedule family bonding time. Whoever thought we would have to do this? But our lives are so crazy today, right? So mealtime, movie nights, craft, nights, game nights. We took nieces and nephews to the arcade, and they won enough tickets. And one of them, who was sleeping over for the weekend, got a checker set. We had so much fun playing checkers. I hadn't played checkers for years. It was great. And we were laughing together, which really helps bonding. It was wonderful. Well, try it. Maybe Monopoly game, whatever. Shoots and ladders. If the kids are younger, there are other games now. And don't be afraid to limit activities so you don't overwhelm yourself or family members with too much, whether they're work programs, after school programs. This is important. Not only learning to say no to everybody, but I think when it comes to programs, a few people live vicariously through their kids. And so they want to sign them up for everything. Sometimes the kids don't want to do it. Maybe they don't have the skill to participate in a certain sport, or they really don't want to do it. Or, in some cases, they're just doing it because some friends are doing it. Their heart's not in it. So tell them it's all right if they don't want to participate, and sort of limit those things. And again, learning to say no in a nice way, right, is very important, and stick to it. Your kids, set time, a special time for them in their activities. So maybe one night a week, Joey stays up a little later, and another night a week, Harriet, you spend time with Harriet, and so on and so forth. And, the house cleaning, the housework, work in the garage will always be there, but the kids grow up very quickly. So, try to do some fun activities together. This time of the year now, the leaves will be falling, and go out and do some raking together. Go out and bike ride, take a walk. And for the little kids, maybe spend some time reading to them. And this will engender an interest, a love for reading as well. Be totally present, as I said, when you're with your family. And, share tasks with other parents. I know people who, one of the parents takes the kids in the morning to daycare, and the other parent picks them up in the afternoon. And don't forget your needs. Learn to ask for help when you need it, and don't give in to guilt. And if you're caring for elderly, for example, get connected to Red Cross or other organizations that can provide you with classes and caregiving. Go on the internet, you can find, all the help that you need. It's wonderful today. This is a benefit of the internet. And stay connected socially. And socializing is so important. We lost that during COVID, didn't we? And it didn't benefit our mental health. So stay connected with family and friends. We've got FaceTime. We can have a cup of coffee over Zoom when people are far away, right? You can certainly visit them. And set your personal health goals. This is important for you too. See your primary care provider. You need to de-stress, and acknowledge. So you want to be sure you have 15 to 30 minutes. Maybe that's the extra 5 or so, 10 minutes after you shower for, a mental break. Or you have a nice backyard, or you live near the woods, try connecting with nature. Or make your bedroom your sanctuary. Make it attractive. Buy a few things at Home Goods that you like, and close the door. And when the door is closed, everybody knows they shouldn't bother you. Read a book there, for example, meditate. And every night before you go to bed, express gratitude. What are 2 or 3 things you're thankful for? Learning to see that glass as half full. Remember the idea that everything needs to get done. This means, you really have to give this up. This is how you get extra time. Getting extra time includes the perception that everything must be perfect, including you. It doesn't. And what about those unnecessary chores? This is how we get extra time, or tasks. Recognize it's okay to ask for help. And if you volunteer at all, if you're, altruistic, it makes it easier for you to ask for help. And you connect with other people, and you develop supports. Keep work at work, and know that some work may be able to be delegated elsewhere. Not always. Finally, There's no perfect work-life balance. Recognize that. It's not either or. You do the best you can and prioritize. Consider what's really important to you. You'll notice the rings here, the different parts of work life in the little graphic. Strive for a realistic schedule versus that perfect one. And remember, what works this week won't work another week or even in the next day. So remain flexible. And this isn't something that you're going to achieve in one day, but over the long run. And with that, we're at the end, and we have some resources here that you might want to take a look at that deal with parenting and time management, for example, and taking better care of yourself, etc. So you might want to check out some of these. These are some that I particularly like. Maybe you can find some help here as well. And I'm going to take the opportunity to look in the chat, we're at the end, to see if there are any comments, something we haven't mentioned that you do, or questions. So feel free to ask questions as well. And with that, I want to thank you. So let me check the chat and the question answer. I have a thank you here, and you're very welcome.